Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It is so good to be back here. I love y'all. For those of you who were here the last time I had the privilege of speaking before you, it's good to see you again. And for those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, it is a privilege for you to give me the honor of your time and attention. It's so great to be back with y'all. I am here tonight to tell you the story of an 80-year-old man with a spine of steel. On the outside, he looked just like anybody else. But on the inside, he was extraordinary. And after I tell you his story, we'll talk about what it means for every last one of us in our businesses. That 80-year-old man was my father-in-law. He was born and lived his entire life in the backwoods of Pennsylvania, one of the states here in the USA. He worked for the utilities, and he had 5 sons. 4 of them, just like him, were born and raised in this rural area and stayed there their entire lives. The 5th was my husband. He left Pennsylvania and came to New York City, where he lives to this day. As my father-in-law, whoops, sorry about that. Hopefully it won't happen again, but you never know, but I'll be resilient in dealing with it. As my father-in-law approached his 80th birthday, he began to not feel very well. And as the year went on, it became clear that he probably would never feel good again. As Christmas approached, he reached out to each of his 5 sons and asked them each if they would spend time with him during the holidays, probably his last holidays. The 4 that lived in Pennsylvania said yes, and they surrounded him during the Christmas season and celebrated it that last time. But the 5th, my husband, had a job that he could not leave for the holidays. When his father called him up, he said, "Dad, I would do anything to spend Christmas with you, but they won't let me off. The minute the new year comes and I can take a day, I will be with you." And true to his word, when January came and he could get a day off, my husband grabbed the first train that he could and went to Pennsylvania to see his father. The first day they spent together was beautiful. They woke up. My husband made his father breakfast. Then he cut his father's toenails because his father couldn't reach them. Then he helped his father shower. After that, his father needed a haircut. And so he took his dad to the barber. There was a brand new woman that had just started there that day. And my father-in-law and that woman giggled and flirted and had a great old time together. Then they went home. And when they got home, and my father-in-law entered the house, crossed the doorway, he turned around and he looked my husband right in the eye. And in that moment, he collapsed into my husband's arms. My father-in-law never woke up again. Why do I tell you that story? Because the mindset that a sick 80-year-old man had was so powerful that it gave him the ability to control life and death. If a sickly 80-year-old man had a mindset with that sort of strength, imagine what every single one of you in your primes can do with your businesses. That is the power of mindset, and that is what I am here to talk to you about tonight. All of us during the past year and a half, but even going forward, have or will have had days when cash flow is very tight, when it seems like the customers just aren't there, or where the amount of work that you have is so overwhelming, it seems like the sky might fall. Throughout the history of business, the greatest companies that there have ever been have all had moments when they've tottered, they've shaken, and some have fallen. But that's not you. You are like my father-in-law. On the outside, just an ordinary person, but on the inside, something extraordinary. We all have days when we say to ourselves, I didn't sign up for this. Maybe this just isn't for me. Why don't I just step back and quit? And I'm going to explain why that is just not possible. Let's step back a bit and make sure that we all understand who and what we are as entrepreneurs and small business owners in the larger economic picture. Entrepreneurs and small business owners serve two very important functions in the larger economy. First, we increase the amount of cash flowing throughout the whole economy through the transactions of the sales that we have. And as we all know, an economy without cash flowing in it is one that is shrinking and ultimately doomed to fail. The second role, even more specific to entrepreneurs and small business people, is that we are responsible for identifying gaps in the provision of goods and services or inefficiencies in the provision of goods and services. And then we gather the resources to fill those gaps and either move our industries forward more efficiently or provide goods and services in a way that is better than existing companies. What we each do then as entrepreneurs and business people is make sure that the economy runs efficiently and with innovation. If we do not serve that function, if we do not exist, we are stripping the economy. I say all of this because it's important for us to remember as small business owners, it's always more important than just us. is even more important than our customers. It's about the big picture. Just as a parent cannot abandon a child, we cannot abandon our roles in this economy or our businesses, because what we do is simply too important. With that in mind, what are some practical tips that I have for you about how to be resilient when times are tough? I have 3. So listen or take notes or do whatever you feel is best, and I will share them with you. Number 1, have a practice of gratitudes. Now, that is nothing original to Scott Mason. Everyone, I'm sure, at one point or another has heard that they should write down things that they're grateful for, that they have or that have happened to them. In other words, everyone always hears, be grateful for the past or the present. But my twist is a little bit different, and I urge you each to take it quite seriously. I want you to begin a practice of constantly being grateful for the future. You may be asking yourself, what does that mean? How can you be grateful for something that hasn't happened yet? I will tell you how right now. When times are tough, actually all the time, but especially when times are tough, spend some time, even if it's just for a minute or 2, thinking about the future of you and your business. When you're feeling depressed or like you want to quit, imagine what it will be like for you the day this crisis is over. What will your desk be like? What will your office be like? How will it feel to walk into your space and have all of your employees smiling at you and waving? Or your customers writing letter after letter after letter, talking about how awesome your services were. Imagine that, and then write down your gratitude for it. The reason why I suggest that is twofold. First of all, gratitude generally tie us to the positive, and it goes without saying that one of the tools that we need to make it through very difficult times is the ability to be positive. But secondly, when we imagine our dream future and write down gratitude for it, we're psychologically tying ourselves to that future. In other words, we're not just imagining something, we're creating hope. And not only that, we're creating hope for something very specific. And hope is at the core of all resilience. Tip number 2, and I heard this from someone who is a lot wiser and a lot smarter than me, so I cannot and will not take credit for the words of this wise woman. And that is, when times are tough. And again, it might be helpful to do this even when times aren't rough. I know I do it every day. I write down, and you should write down, something that you do well all the time, and something that you did well that day. Now, what you did well that day might not seem significant. There was one day, the only thing I could think of that I did well that day was pour a cup of coffee out of the pot and into a cup without spilling it. But most days are not like that. Most of the time, every single one of you will do something more significant well than just pouring a cup of coffee. And then there are things that you do well all the time. Make sure you write those down too. It might be that every day I'm able to put on my suspenders well. And if that's all I can think of, I write it down. But again, I bet you'll think of things that you do well a lot, that are a lot more substantial than that. Why do I suggest that you do that? A, as was the case with the gratitudes for the future, writing down what you do well and something that you did well tethers you to the positive. Secondly, if you do it consistently, you will notice that patterns emerge. There are things that you do well every day, and there are things that you do well all of the time. Those things are your superpowers. Those are the things that got you where you are. And once you understand what made you successful in the first place, you understand the tools and the skills that you have that are unique to you, that will get you out of this mess and will also ramp you back up once the time of the crisis is over. And by the way, no crisis lasts forever. Finally, number 3, self-identify with intentionality. I'll say it again, self-identify with intentionality. Now, I bet you're asking yourself, what on earth is this man talking about? Those words made no sense. And you're laughing, so I think that's true. Well, let me explain it to you by telling a story. When I turned 41, which is pretty amazing that I turned 41 since I'm 25, when I turned 41, I decided to up and learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so I joined a dojo. And I went to class. And all seemed well, except for one little problem. My martial arts skills are terrible. They're terrible. I was awful. Every day I went to class, it was another humiliation. I was a laughing stock. I'm not ashamed to say it. Everyone was laughing at me except me. And after a while, I got sick of being so ridiculous and wanted to quit. But the chief instructor said something that really rang a bell up here. He said, as martial artists, we are self-disciplined. If you say to yourself every day, I'm self-disciplined, psychologically, that is what you will become. If you self-identify intentionally as self-disciplined, you will become that. And so, after work, every day, when I had the choice of going home and eating a bag of chips, or going back to that martial arts school, I would say to myself, God, you're self-disciplined. At first, I couldn't even keep a straight face when I said it. But after a while, I started to be self-disciplined, simply because I was telling myself I was so much. By the way, I was in class all the time, and you may be happy to hear that my martial arts skills actually got better. I could scarcely believe it myself. What does that mean for you? When times are dark, self-identify as resilient. Say to yourself over and over again, I am resilient. When the coronavirus first went down, and there was a lockdown here in New York City, and people were dying left and right, y'all, they opened up hospital beds a half a block from my house in the park. I said to myself every day, I am a resilient super soldier. I am a resilient super soldier. And self-identifying with intentionality made me resilient. It will change your life. So my 3 tips are as follows. Number 1, gratitudes for the future. Imagine them, write them down. Number 2, write down something that you do well every single day and something that you generally do well. And then examine what you're writing and discover your powers. And number 3, self-identify as resilient, and you will become that. Now, those are my 3 little tips, but I can't help myself. I'm gonna have to give you a bonus. And that bonus is to, in your darkest hours, go back to what I told you at the top of the hour about the 80-year-old man who was sick, but who managed to stay alive until he saw the last of his 5 sons. Remember what I told you about your role in the economy, that the economy itself, the foundations of our society, cannot succeed if small business owners and entrepreneurs just like you, if they fail. Because when you understand the truth about who and what you are and accept the magnitude of it, you understand your purpose. And when you understand your purpose, you understand your mission. And then you are no different than an 80-year-old man with the power over life and death. Let me share something with you. Not that long ago, I went to a networking meeting, and it was one of these networking meetings where everyone sits around and they stand up for 30 seconds. It was on Zoom, and they talk a little bit about their business. Then there was a spotlight presentation where one of the business people went up and talked for about a half an hour about their specific company that they work for, that they own. And that day, the spotlight presentation was the group's insurance agent. And I've got to admit, when she stood up and started to talk, I sat back in my chair and was totally prepared to be bored. Because I don't know about y'all, and if there's insurance agents in this group, with all due respect, I personally cannot think of anything that is more dull than insurance. I'm just keeping it real. I can't. Insurance, it bores me. I used to have to read policies. I wanted to cry. So when this woman stood up, I was already yawning. But then she opened her mouth, and I snapped to attention. She spoke with such passion. I felt like she had an arrow somewhere in her back that she whipped out and thrown right through the screen at me, and it hit me in the heart. She viewed nothing in the world as more important than a small business. And she viewed it as her divine mission to make sure that her insurance was protecting every one of them against any conceivable obstacle that a small business could face. When she was talking, she had such passion. I almost imagine her on a raft going down some massive providential river to the great ocean of her future and her destiny. All of us are on our own journeys down the great entrepreneurial river. And as we know, all of us will have days when we are running over rocks. But remember the bigger picture. Remember your purpose. And you will be like the 80-year-old man who could conquer death. Your business will not crash on those rocks. You will be resilient. Matt, Jonathan, Elsie?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Very powerful message and amazing presentation as always. Guys, we're entering to the QA, so if somebody would like to make some comment or make a questions, feel free to open your mic or just let me know.
Yeah, I would like to say something actually, if I could. So I apologize. I kind of entered a little bit late into this, but I actually I don't know if you already mentioned this, but I'm actually really curious because it sounds like you know, you have this inspiration and it comes from maybe a moment in life or something that like really drives you. And I kind of want to understand, what is it that drives you, or what was that turning point, I guess, in your life where you had this attitude and this thing that motivates you into doing the way that you do, and that fuels your incredible energy that you do have. And it seems like you'll just keep on having. And I'm very excited. I'm sincerely curious. I would like to know, what is it that fuels you to keep going the way that you are? Because people like this, the way that I see you, definitely is the type of people that inspires others, you know, to keep going. Because it's the type of people that people say, you know, if he can, why can't I? If he's doing it this way, I can do it. If she's doing it this way, I know I can. So again, sorry, what is it that fuels you? I'm curious.
Yes, I actually have a story that I will share with you all about that, if I may.
But please, thank you.
Thank you. It's a little bit, it won't be too long, but it's not just a short answer, but I hope that it speaks to you. And there was a specific life-changing event that occurred. I was an attorney for 25 years, but I hated it. I hated it. I had, at one point, a magisterial office. The office that I had where I worked was bigger than my apartment. I was so disconnected from my purpose, so disconnected with any sense of meaning, that I'll never forget. I had a meeting one morning, and after that meeting, I went to get some breakfast. And as I was getting breakfast, I crossed the street, and on the sidewalk was a cart where a man was selling coffee for 75 cents. I remember that very vividly. And I looked at him in that coffee cart, and he was smiling when he gave a customer that coffee. I was so full of rage and envy because it wasn't me. I was desperate. I would have done anything in that moment to be that man selling coffee for 75 cents. I eventually gave up that career and co-owned a printing business with a friend of mine, actually a friend of mine that I mentioned who I met at that martial arts school that I mentioned during the speech. And during our time together, we grew that company dramatically. It ended up being a company with locations in 2 cities. We tripled our our revenue. We tripled our staff size, all of this sort of stuff. But we had different visions for the future of that company. He did not like the growth process. I loved it. So my business partner and he wanted to shrink the company back. I wanted it to grow even more. We could not stay business partners with completely opposite visions for the company. So we decided to have an amicable split. And we felt that since I had had a diversity of careers before, I would be better able to be the one to leave, and I didn't want to hurt the business. So he bought me out. It wasn't a huge amount of money, I won't lie with you all. And he went on his way. I didn't have anything lined up. And I felt, here I am again, having to recreate my life. And I was frustrated because I felt that nothing was going the way I wanted it to. This wasn't the plan that I had for my life. Nothing was working out right. I also felt ashamed that I had been bought out by this business and that, again, the dreams that I had for it weren't going to happen. So I didn't have any plan. I didn't have a load of money. I just had to think. I live near Central Park in New York City. And for those of you who don't know New York City, Central Park is a massive, massive park in the middle of the city. It's beautiful too. And I love to bicycle. So I got my little bike one night and I decided to just ride. It was raining that night. And at the time I wore glasses. And so I was riding my bike in the rain, wearing glasses that got foggy as it was raining. Brilliant, right? Now, maybe I had a death wish. I don't know what was going through my head. But as I was bicycling along in Central Park at night in the rain, the foggy glasses, I was thinking to myself exactly what I just said to you. My life is a disaster. How am I going to get where I want to go? I know I've been given skills. I know I've been given gifts, and I know I've been given experiences. God knows I've been given that. How can I use those to take me where I want to be? And on that bicycle, for whatever reason, something in my mind clicked. And I realized I was thinking about it all wrong. I was thinking about how I could get where I wanted to be, not how I could be of service to others. And suddenly, something changed. And if this was any group besides y'all, I wouldn't tell you the whole truth, which is that in the dark, in the rain, with foggy glasses, I started to cry. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I couldn't stop myself. Just crying and crying on this bicycle. And thank goodness, I didn't crash into a tree, because then I would be talking to you today as a ghost. And that would be a very, very different type of conversation we had. Everything in my life changed because I was able to talk to people coming from a desire to help, a desire to serve. And that's how I approached people in my network. And work started to come to me almost as if by magic. Initially, it was faster than I could handle, but it's governed everything that I do since. Service and the belief that everything that I've been given, every trial that I've had, was so I could better service others, is what inspires me and what I've never forgotten. And it's what has carried me through every valley that I've had since. Thank you for asking.
In fact, if I may, I would like to do a follow-up, something because what you're saying is actually really powerful for different reasons, at least the way that I interpret it. And first of all, actually, I apologize that I can't put video right now. Long story short, I just got back from the gym, not in an ideal situation, so I look terrible.
Hope it was a good one.
I actually find that amazing because, you know, when you're saying that you want to do this, I guess through service, and this is kind of like the big driver in this point, it actually made me think of a lot of things that I've learned in business, both in college and also just things that I've read and experienced. And that is, it's very important to think of the customer, you know, and in this case, your drive to serve is so powerful that you're constantly thinking about the needs of others. And when I think about it in a business perspective, it's basically what a businessman should be doing. You know, you have to think about the needs of the people. If I think about it as an emotional, ethical thing, obviously it's a great driver and you can't fail because you're just driven to help others. And me personally, as a spiritual person, as a spiritual guy myself, I also that it comes together because again, there's no way of failing because in fact, this is something that I've been telling people lately. The only time you actually fail is when you stop trying, because you will come to points in your life where you're gonna, I don't know, you're gonna have issues. Things are gonna happen. Life is just that way. But it's the time when you stop trying that is the issue, and it's kind of sad because if I told you the goals that I've had that I have in my life, the things that I want to do, and I tell it to other people, they would think that I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've come to embrace myself is only those people who are crazy enough to believe that they can make a change are the ones who actually do. And so what you're saying really resonates with me is what I said.
Jose, I am so glad, and I'm so glad you shared that. That really spoke to me as well. And thank you for sharing something that I'll get to carry with me for a long time. I will say one thing about all of that too. I would go even a step further than you. Now, I'm a radical about this. So take what you will from it. Understand this is coming from a radical around this point, which is that if we understand our purpose, understand what we're serving, why we're serving, and are committed to the concept of service, it is an ethical crime for us not to be resilient, for us to give up. Because if we've been given all that we've been given, our skills, our limitations, our history, our adversity that we've already overcome in life, and chosen to do anything less than all that we can with it, we're laughing the universe that gave us this stuff in the face. Who are we to do that? Rather than take our gifts and shoot them out and push them out to the max. So that's my radicalism for the day. Take it for what you will, but above all else, thank you for your words. That moved me.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you. And I'm very grateful the way that you are and what you're doing for others and just the way that you hold yourself. It really is inspiring. So I appreciate you, man.
I gotcha.
Okay, thank you so much, Jose. Anybody, anyone else would like to say something?
I'll say something that you pointed out in your lesson that I liked a lot. You said when times get dark, self-identify. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you.
One of the lessons I was taught as probably when I went through sports, like any adversity in sports, so I'm really a sports guy, was and my dad taught me this, is and he went through a lot of stuff, so he owns his own business and that kind of stuff, and he went through a lot of adversity and to where, you know, certain things, credit cards are maxed out, you're putting everything on the line, and he said, this is the craziest thing, and I actually did it just now. And I've never done this actually, really. I always had it up here, but I actually just wrote it down. List 10 things they cannot take away. Does that make sense? So self-identifying, all right, risk reward here, all right, as far as business, all right, and when you're going through it, 10 things that you can't take away. And that's like courage, work ethic, family, friends, hope, network, knowledge, certain things, but it goes into as you're growing yourself as much as anybody, and the serving others is where it comes from 100%, and nobody can take that away from you as far as it goes. And when you try to transition that into business, when it comes to risk reward and you're trying to be a leader out there, I mean, you take that step at that point. Does that make sense? Because those are priceless stuff. and you work for it. So that's kind of when you said self-identify in dark times, that's good. And I just,
And what a great add-on that is.
my dad taught me that lesson a long time ago. But yeah.
I might steal from your dad, man. That's powerful advice.
I want to say one thing before we wrap up. I know it's been running a little long, but it's something that resonated with me, and it was your third point, and it was the same point that he said, the self-identify. So like for me, for example, I don't like doing Zoom calls. I'm not the social person, so it's very hard for me to do these kind of things. Believe it or not, it's weird, right? So I got home, I was rushing home from work, and I was like, oh, I have the Zoom call. I've been thinking about it all day. I'm like, I have to do this. I mean, it's just, and then my girl, it was Cinco de Mayo, so I had friends telling me, hey, are you coming here? Clients like, hey, what are you doing after work? I got home and I was just anxious. I was hot. I was like, I don't know what to do. And it's funny. So there's this quote that I've read maybe like a month ago, and I guess it ties in with you. And I guess it goes to Jose, and it's how do you motivate yourself to do it, or what drives you and what keeps you moving forward? And one of the things that I told myself, and I told myself today, I had a shower before I got on here. I was hot. And I told myself this in the shower, and I was like, there are people doing more than you simply because they choose to believe in themselves. So the thing that I believe drives a lot of people, and that other people seek exterior motives to drive, and like, what drives you? Maybe you had an experience. And yes, I believe that drives you to a certain extent. But I think what really drives a person is your purpose, and understanding that if you feel that whatever you're doing in life is resonating with you, and that what you're doing is bringing purpose and joy, not just to you, because the purpose in life is not just to bring joy to you, but what ripple can you show, like how big can your ripple get before you leave the time that you have here? And I think I just believe this topic was a very great topic to touch on. I think a lot of people got a lot of great advice from this. It touched a lot of people. I'm very thankful that you were able to join us. But yeah, man, that's all I had to say. But I do want to say that there are a lot of, the one thing that I do believe is, if you just believe in yourself and you truly focus on what you can do and how you can affect other people, not for personal gain, but truly just for the passion of helping people, then you will find that path to figuring out what your purpose is on this earth and what your purpose is with other people. That was it.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Thank you, everybody. If somebody else wants to say, well, there are some comments in chat. Great presentation, awesome. I agree, it's very inspiring. I guess everybody has been like having like a great time. Scott, you are amazing. I told you this already, and it's true. You are very, very, very an inspiration to listen. Sometimes, like some people just have it. You are one of those. No, it's like, it's a great time just to be able to listen and to have your experience in this part. The 3 mentions and the 3 tips that you gave us are truly like something that we can all work on. Some of us already have like kind of experience. Some of others are just listening and then, hey, maybe this is something that I can work on. And that's what it is. It's just passing on knowledge, and you do an amazing job. Very, very emotional that it comes for you, and it's showing, because when you do something with passion, it's really showing, and you are such an example of that. Your passion actually works, and it's something that everybody can. Some people that can just join us within 5 minutes later or anything, and they can still see it and they can still feel it. So imagine how great it is.
Thank you all again. And I'm a huge fan of you all, so it's truly a privilege, and I mean a privilege, to be here.
Well, thank you one more time. Dr. Guerra, ¿desea dejar algunas palabras?
Buenas noches con todos. Gracias a la colaboración de Scott Mason nuevamente con una muy buena conferencia el día de hoy, orientada a los nuevos emprendedores y a los empresarios que cada 15 días nos conectamos en este conversatorio, que es muy interesante, muy importante. Gracias a ti, Elsie, por siempre la apertura y por siempre coordinar desde allá estas conferencias que son muy importantes en estos momentos. Gracias, Elsie, y gracias, Scott.
Okay.
Y gracias a todos por conectarse el día de hoy.
Okay, he's very thankful again. Thank you one more time, Scott. Thank you, everybody in Procer, Ecuador, and also encouraging students here in US. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Jonathan. Guys, you can always find Scott on all his social media. He has Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also he has his own website. We're gonna put all his links so you guys can follow him, and definitely you can listen. He has amazing programs and he's available almost all the time. You can always find his videos. Very amazing. And just make sure that you guys follow him.
Bakerscott.com.
You know we are, Elsie.